welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about Hosea, a prophet, and the message title is Difficult to Love. Now, I like this story very much. The prophet Hosea is one that I've always been challenged with because, I wonder about the things that God asks us to do sometimes. Like I've judged Jonah in my life, and I know that there are many people who have judged Jonah in his life and are like, man, why couldn't he just do what God asked him to do? He just needed to go preach to the Ninevites. How hard could that be, right? He ran the other way. I mean, you see it in the children's stories and in the songs and all of that stuff. But it's kind of like, well, sometimes God will ask you to do things that are very difficult to do. And you have to be faced with that reality, because this is true for me, and maybe it's true for you as well. But I bought into this idea that God wouldn't ask me to do something that wasn't good for me, right? Or that wouldn't be immediately obvious that it was good for me, I should say, right? Or that I wouldn't experience these hardships and these challenges in following God's will, right? Because if you're doing what God asks you to do, of course, He's going to pave the way. He's going to lead you in battle. He's going to, go before you and beside you and behind you, all around you and within you, right? He's going to do all of those things. And He's going to make it happen. And He's going to rain the hail from heaven and bring the walls down, all the things that we like to sing during worship. But what He asks Hosea to do is challenging for me. And perhaps because fidelity is so important to me in my life, and that's been an important narrative for me, for me to be married to somebody that's faithful, and for me to be faithful, like that's been so important. And because I've seen infidelity bring down so many relationships. So I'll just read you the story, right? Let's go into it. Hosea chapter 1, verse 2. Listen to the request that God asks of this prophet of God. When the Lord first began speaking to Israel through Hosea, He said to him, "Go and marry a prostitute." Pause. I'm going to just let you meditate on that for a minute. God tells him, it's not that he decides. Hosea is not frequenting brothels and then deciding, that one looks good or whatever, I'm going to take that one as my wife. That's not Hosea's story. That's not his process. The Bible tells us that God tells him to marry a prostitute so that some of her children, listen, will be conceived in prostitution. This will illustrate how Israel has acted like a prostitute by turning against the Lord and worshiping other gods. So Hosea married Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, and she became pregnant and gave Hosea a son. This story hits me every time. Hosea does it. So the thing that God asks him to do, this, for me, seemingly impossible thing to do, right? He does it, and he is faithful to God through it. And then God says, so that your children will be children of prostitution. We began our foster journey recently, and we've been blessed with loving children that are not our own. And sometimes it's difficult to love people who don't love you back or who don't treat you well. But what I've seen from time to time with these kids who come from foster homes is that from that have been removed from their families, is that rather than hating their parents, they love them so incredibly much. And they get so excited when they see them, despite the hardships and the difficulties that they've experienced at their hands. They're able to love people who have hurt them. And truly, this is love. Not just to love somebody that treats you well and that is good, and that love is patient, love is kind. And that is great when things are great. When the relationship is just starting off and you just got married and you're in the flower, in the spring of marriage, and everything is going well. It's easy to love them then. What happens when you have to love them when things are not going well? And in fact, this is what Jesus does with us. He loves us when we are acting like we should and we deserve to be loved because we're doing the right things and all of that we tell ourselves. But he also loves us when we act the fool, when we don't do what we're supposed to do and we're acting like people that don't deserve to be loved. And I put it in quotations because the reality is that God has shown us that we deserve to be loved by him. Not because of what we've done, but because he is good, because of the greatness of who he is. His love for us transcends our actions and who we are and what we've done and reaches us. And this is really what God is saying to us through the story of Hosea. It's, I love you. Even though you've been prostituting yourself, I still love you. And that's a challenge for us, to love the way that he loves us, whether our kids, whether our family deserves it or not, to love others the way that he loves us. May God bless you. Have a great day.